quickly introduce myself. You might have seen it on the pamphlet already. My name is Jochen Kirstätter, or short Joki, because it's easier to pronounce for English as well as French speaking. I've been invited coming from Mauritius, so the tropical island far east, beyond Madagascar. And I would like to talk a little bit about pair programming with Gemini. And I see there is quite some interest, so thank you for coming. And I hope I can entertain you the next 40 minutes. So, pair programming, in general, what is it? Well, it's a really old concept. So it's already back to the ENIAC women. So like the first programmers that were writing program before it was even called a program. And they were actually, those women were actually usually put together as a pair, as a couple, to pick each other's brain, to pick each other's idea, to pick or to challenge each other's conclusions, and in order then to make the work better. So pair programming itself as a term has been cornered around the 90s by Ken Beck in his Extreme Programming book. However, let's see how we can put this further. So pair programming has a couple of benefits. Among them is that it's a knowledge sharing. Yeah, so you can combine two developers at the same level. You can combine a mediator and a junior. You might even combine a senior with a progress junior developer in order that knowledge is shared, which is also important for a business because then it avoids that there are the towers of knowledge that can be built up so that you have one or two go-to people in the company. They know the whole system, and the rest of the team is like, if this person is not present, we have a problem. And with pair programming, you can mitigate this a little bit. It's also a situation that reflecting on each other's ideas, you can challenge each other, you can evaluate different ideas, you get different point of view, because each and everyone has different experience and a different way of thinking. So having this possibility to leverage those two modes of thinking is going to help to increase the quality of a system. Now, why I'm telling you this about pair programming is now, well, what is pair programming with AI? It's exactly the same. The only difference is you take an AI assistant as the second entity. So meaning that it has the additional benefit that it's 24/7 available. And maybe some of you are like me, like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ooh, let me explore some ideas, give me some bullet points. Or maybe after dinner, while having a shower, you get some ideas. Might be also interesting then just to pop up the mobile and see what is their validity for the activities. So meaning using an AI assistant like Gemini gives you the possibility that you can follow the principles or the concept of pair programming at any time. When we talk about Gemini, there is actually a problem because Gemini is not Gemini and is not Gemini. There are multiple iterations. You might have heard something about Google AI Studio, maybe Vertex AI Studio as part of Google Cloud Platform, then maybe Code Assist, as it has just been renamed during the Cloud Next event. And there are other activities or possibilities where you can leverage Gemini as an API, which gives you the ability that you can integrate it into your code, into your applications, or maybe you write your own tool for it. And last but not least, there's the Gemini app. So on mobile, on iOS or on Android, you can pop it up and can brainstorm while you are commuting. You never know. Ideas come and go at any time. You can't just force it during office hours. It just happens. So what does this mean? What can we use with Gemini in certain situations? Typical use cases are that you have an existing code base and where's the documentation for it? Developers, are you writing documentation? Hands up? Huh? Documentation? Not so beautiful, not so appealing, I have most of the time. The interesting part is actually you can take the whole code base and provide it to Gemini as a context. And then you can start asking questions about your code. It's like, hey, do we have logging in this area? What type can I use in order to achieve X, Y, Z? Or questions like, I have a problem in this area. Do you have suggestions to improve it or to refactor it? And you might have noticed now that I'm literally talking to a regular person. Yeah, when I express my concerns or my questions towards Gemini. And that's actually the trick to do it in such a way. The other use cases are generate code. I mean, I'm using Gemini since last year, August, September, being part of the Trusted Tester program, which is kind of a beta program by Google. And since then, I have it activated in my daily IDEs. I'm using Visual Studio Code. On the other side, I'm using JetBrains Rider. And it's pretty nice because you start coding or you write a command, pseudocode. Who does pseudocode? I do. So you write your command, and then you get the code suggestions coming from Gemini. And the cool part is actually that it's a learning process as well, how Gemini starts to understand you. At the beginning, I was struggling because it was like, oh man, that AI assistant is so dumb, it doesn't know what I want. However, staying in the project, opening multiple files, providing more context, correcting some suggestions, Gemini got better. So it adapted to what I actually want, which is very interesting. The other thing is unit tests. Who writes code? Who writes unit tests? Yeah? Well, I never did this in the past, but with Gemini, it's just a right click, hey, generate tests. Then I have a template, and I need to be a little bit adjust it the way I need it, and that's it. So instead of having this mental switch, oh, I need to write a test, it's like, hey, okay, let's generate it and then see how it goes. And, you know, it takes me just a few minutes to assemble my tests instead of having to type everything down, which might take me easily half an hour. And of course, you can have Gemini to generate documentation or comments in the code. All these kind of possibilities are there. Another benefit out of this is also it helps with the onboarding of new members or existing team members. If you have multiple teams and somebody joins in freshly, you know, you can just ask Gemini about the code and you don't need to bother somebody else with their precious time for simple questions. Of course, if you go in a certain expert level, it might be better than to talk to one because any AI assistant is not a source of truth. Yeah, it's not a source of facts in regards to that. There might be hallucinations, there might be, you know, some mistakes. And if you consider Gemini maybe like a mature junior developer starting to be intermediate, that's the right level to exchange. So on an expert level, which I don't count myself because I'm a beginner in everything, even with long years experience, is that, okay, let's see what can happen, but there are still possibilities where you can increase your productivity. Yeah, I'm super lazy, I don't like to type. And if I get 3 lines of code, I just look at it, oh yeah, that fits, and I just tap or hit enter, and the lines are there, and I'm faster, I'm more efficient to get the job done during the day. That's why I love working with Gemini. And yeah, coming back, English is the new programming language. Who would have thought about that? And this also means that, like with a second person, with a colleague, express your thoughts, express your intent in natural language. The model, Gemini, has the capability to understand, based on the fact that it's a large language model. It has the full range of English language. And you can just say, hey, I need whatever, and you can generate it. Typical statement like this. Generate a table that has all the countries with alphabetically listed, with capitals, and their continent. That's something that I would talk to a colleague. Hey, can you give me that list? Well, it might take more time to get it assembled, but that's within seconds, you get the list. Now this looks like, oh, how do I use this in code? Well, you can say, give it to me back in JSON format, or give it back to me in XML format. No problem at all. It's about what you want, you express. If you need to give more context, you provide it, but you make your statement and Gemini can generate it for you. A list is nice. Usually data is stored in databases. How does this look like? Okay, let's query a database. Yeah? What you want to do? You want to query a table with XYZ, joining another table with countries, and it automatically makes the join, gives you the result as what you need. You take it, you copy and paste it. In this case, it's SQL Server, so you would put it in Management Studio or in your backend service, query the database. You're done. This takes less than 10 seconds. Another thing is Docker, for example. Who likes to use containers? Who's struggling with the syntax of Docker files? I'm really bad at memorizing. So there, hey, generate me Docker script or Docker file with XYZ specification. Takes less than 10 seconds. I can copy that, put it in a Docker file, and I'm good to go. I don't have to, punish myself or torture myself about, oh, what was the syntax, etc., etc. Of course, this is a boilerplate. The more you describe, the more details you get back. And it's directly commented. Hey, who likes comments? Yes, the other main aspect, you saw now that everything was like typed. However, Gemini has, to my opinion, really, really, really nice advantage because it is a multi-modality model. It means it understands more than just text. So meaning you can give it an image and let it generate code or generate data for you out of an image. A typical example might be, that's one of the examples that they show in the documentation. They give you a billboard from airplanes. And then it was like, okay, take the image, give me the information as JSON. And it takes really, okay, it knows the time, the flight number, the destination, and you get it nicely as a JSON structure. You don't have to type it or whatever. It's good for generating sample data, for tests, for anything else that you would need. Apart from that, as we have images, we can also feed it with a video. The trick is, the video is actually then separated into 1 second frames. So it's, if you have a minute video, it's actually 60 frames, 60 images that Gemini uses. However, the interesting part is, and that has been also documented on social media, I haven't tried it myself, but the cool thing is somebody actually screen recorded a problem in a web app and fed it to Gemini, and Gemini came up with a solution knowing the code base. So it was actually fixing an issue based on a video recording. Sounds like a dream, huh? And last but not least, audio. If you want to, you can be Iron Man. Jarvis, do this and that for me. Okay, no problem. You can actually open up the microphone, talk to Gemini, and see what you want. I find this pretty interesting actually on the mobile. And I was doing it this morning, like with the list of countries, I was actually using my mobile, took the record button, Gemini, or give me a list of the spoken languages in South Africa in JSON format. And I got it back. Straightforward. Yeah, talking to Gemini, no problem at all, it works. There are some constraints, like up to 11 hours. Audio can be understood, so I might not suggest to you that you do it in one go. But you know, if you have a specification or you're just thinking about something and you have no hands-free because you're holding your macchiato or something like that, you get ideas. You can brainstorm with Gemini. That's something as well. Who does sketching? Anyone sketches their mobile app or their web app? No? Using Figma, maybe? Yeah? One. How much time does it take you to get it from sketches to code?
Extremely long.
Ah, thank you. That image takes about half a minute to give you a boilerplate. To give you a boilerplate. And the cool thing is actually you can say, I want to have this generated in Flutter. Oh, no, sorry, different team. Huh. I totally mixed it up. I need to have it in Maui, yeah, .NET Stack. Or, no, I need to have it in, you know, for a Swift. Yeah, I need to have it in Swift. And out of these images, it can generate you a boilerplate that you have a starting point. This takes about half a day away? Maybe two? Okay. I mean, it's not giving you the whole code. Yeah, I mean, it's giving you the boilerplate. And that's something really interesting where I think, okay, as a team, you draft first something on paper, and then it's like, oh man, now I need to type this. Yeah, web application with styling. You can say, hey, I need these screens as a web application, use Bootstrap. No, sorry, use Tailwind. Yeah? Fine, or use Angular with Material. Same image, just the instruction about what you want to have as a result. Roughly half a minute. And I'm going to show you. I'm trying to show you that if my internet is working properly, I'm going to show you live. As I mentioned, screen recording. There was an interesting test as well that somebody did. They went actually on GitHub in their public repository, took the issues, like 3 issues, fed it to Gemini, and Gemini came up with the bug fix. I don't know how you call that, but I think this is super productive. Yeah? Of course, nothing is perfect. Errors can occur. In this case, you might say, okay, there's a little bit of an overload. There might be network connectivity issues. Try it again. Wait a few minutes, try it again. I mean, it's going to save you time anyways, based on the fact that instead of coding 2 days, you have it like in half a minute. It doesn't cost you anything to go for coffee or for some water and come back in 5 minutes and try it again. All right. So I think maybe it would be time to look into some live coding. Who likes live coding? Yeah? Okay. Lots of talk. Let's do some live coding. First of all, Visual Studio Code. There is an extension called Gemini Code Assist and Google Cloud. So because of the zooming that you can read it better, it's just halfway. And you can, after you installed it, you get then here the icon for the extension, and you get your prompt. Normally this would be empty. I hope I have internet, yeah. And these are actually all generated prompts. So meaning that anyone has a current coding problem that we should try? What should I enter? Anyone? Yeah. Huh?
Bubble sort.
What's that? So a bubble sort. Okay, sorry. Okay. In which language?
That surprised me.
Well, we need to check that we use one of the supported languages. Right, what is it? Bubble sort, algorithm. What do you want? Golang? Okay, Go language. Let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. Of course, it's network. It needs to go out. And again, it's an AI assistant. It comes up with suggestions. does not come up with facts because it's trained on a certain range of information and it comes up with the best what it can find. Okay, that was like, oh, try again. Changing network, trying again, crossing fingers, please. Oh, there we go. Like 10 seconds. Our Go expert. Huh? It's not in Go. Oh my word. So we say, no, this is bad. Yeah? Okay, let's try it again. Right. Bubble sort algorithm in JavaScript. Everyone does JavaScript. Maybe. Oh, okay, it doesn't help. All right, this is like, the demo gods are not with me today. However, as a good chef, you take the cake, you put it in the oven for 2 hours. I have something prepared for you. So I actually run a couple of prompts already earlier that I would like to show you. Yeah, creating a JavaScript code for a drop-down menu. It gives you the JavaScript code about creating a select, options with values, etc. Again, this is just sample data, and appends it, and there you go. For example, I use a lot of C# coding and Google Cloud, so I need a Google Cloud function in C#. Okay, create a Google Cloud function with an HTTP trigger, so it means it has an endpoint using C#. All right, done and dusted. If I need pops up, it's like a queue, message queue subscribing. The code is a little bit different because here it uses the interface iHTTP function. And in the second example, it says, okay, you need an iCloud event function for message pops up. So it understands what I want, given my specifications. And it's a little bit different. The interesting part as well is, what you might see here, it has the ability to give you citations. Where does the code come from? And nowadays, in regards to intellectual property, copyright, licensing, I think this is a very important information to take into consideration. And it gives you 1, 2, 3 examples about where the code might come from. In general, Gemini is based on everything on documentation provided by Google Cloud. A couple of third-party providers with their official documentation, like Node.js, Go language, Python, official documentation. It also has agreements with other third-party providers, like GitHub, like Stack Overflow, but it does not do the web harvesting, the scraping, like, for example, Copilot did it in the past, like GitHub Copilot did. So there is something to consider. It has its defined sources. On the other side, generating unit tests. Similar situation for the function that we just generated, the code. You would say, okay, generate me the unit tests for that. You can just instruct it, and it keeps a context. Because this is a chat, it is aware of the history. Yeah? So you don't need to give all the instruction each time that you prompt it. You can just do follow-ups. So now here we get a test for the function that we produced earlier, and it knows it needs to inject a public message data and then call the function that we produced in an earlier step. Again, it gives us sources, official Google Cloud Platform, but hey, there's another open source developer. Yeah? So if you are concerned that there might be a license infringement, you can handle it. You can check it out, go to the source, and see what are the conditions. Same function for Google Cloud, we can also generate it for Azure. No problem, it changes the code in a way that you would need. Another interesting aspect is also that when you work with web APIs, you want to test something. You might have a curl statement, and you need that. So you can also say, hey, give me a curl statement, a curl command to produce something. And that is actually something as well that I really like. And I'm going to open a small file. And bear with me. So I'm here in a code file in C#. Luckily, there are some comments, but I'm too lazy to read. So what I can do now is can say, okay, smart actions, explain this to me. So what it does, it takes the whole file as a context and now tries to give me an explanation, and I hope my network is now working, that it tells you, hey, what's happening in that file? Oh, there we go. So the code that we have here demonstrates how to use Gemini API. So Gemini is used to generate code to talk to Gemini. And it gives me clearly the information about, okay, we need an API key, which is retrieved as an environment variable or user secrets. We need a model. There's a system prompt, which means we give it a little bit of context, like, hey, you are a friendly guide in this case, or hiking enthusiast that helps people discover fun. Greeting, response, user request, and so on. So it helps you, as I mentioned, this onboarding stage. Get the code, Gemini can help you. And the cool part is now, you could actually take this and copy it in the documentation. Back in February, I wrote a library to work with the Gemini API. And part of my README is generated explanation that came from Gemini itself. And it's super helpful for somebody that uses then my source code. Because in the README, it's already described what it does. And as you see here, this took less than 10 seconds, copy paste into the README, done. My job as a developer and documentation writing is done. I can go home early. Or take another task, depending on your mileage. So, one of the things that I'm also interested in is, let me just go back, there was the retrieval, is that this one here. So yeah, when has Code Assist been trained on what kind of data? So you can actually ask Gemini, hey, what are you working with? And you see GitHub, Stack Overflow, and so on is part of it, and cutoff date March 23. So meaning anything that has been developed or produced after that cutoff date, Gemini is going to have struggling. Yeah, so if you want to, like for me, I know .NET 8 has been released in November, so it might be a little bit tricky that it can't give me the latest features. Similar with Angular. I think there was a release in May last year. It might not have the latest features of Angular. So that's something to consider. Again, an AI assistant is not a fact-producing machine. It's same like a colleague when you ask him or her, hey, what about how do I do this? I don't know. We need to figure it out. So in this case, Gemini as well is like, I'm not sure. Maybe consult the documentation. Copyright issues, I explained. That's another thing as well that I like, is Linux commands. Anyone working on the command line? Hands up. PowerShell, Setshell, Bash, yeah, Windows, Mac, Linux. I can't remember all the switches for everything. It's just too much. So then in this case, I just say, hey, write me the Linux command to do whatever I need. Bam, I get the response. So in this case, I was actually summarizing all my source code into one file, because then it's easier that I have the complete context instead of having it spread over folders and multiple files. Gemini works better with a single file right now. It has been announced that it is project aware, but this is still in preview. It's coming. So having a statement like this, just as a dummy file, generate everything in one, and then use or ask your questions and explanations about that. And okay, this was the samples for here. So, on the other hand, this was in Visual Studio Code. And let me just open this one here. Yes. So I'm opening a terminal. And I mentioned that Gemini is an extension available in your IDE. However, you might also say, that's not what I want. I want to maybe say, I want to write my own tool. So here in this case, I need to provide my key. Stupid me. Let me just peek. There we go. Okay. Now I wrote literally my own console application, and I can give it whatever context and material that I would like to. And I can now say, hey, similar like with the AI assistant, I can now say, give me a list of spoken languages in South Africa in JSON format. I think there are 11. Am I right? 11 languages? Okay. 12? Okay. Let's see what happens. Of course, it needs internet. Crossing fingers. Oh, there we go. It only gives me 11. But it gives me a JSON array. Oh, sign language. Exactly. That was the catch. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So yeah, there you see even that you could have asked this Gemini assistant or the extension, but you can also write a tool communicating with the Gemini API. This also gives you then the ability that you can take Gemini and enhance it with your own data, with your own information, with your own documentation. Yeah? So it's not only about chatbot or coding, it's really like you give it more facts about what you need, because usually we are in a specific domain. And Gemini, as a large language model, is too large. So by giving it the detailed information about your project, you can start narrowing down and it gets better. And that's something that you can do in combination with Google Cloud Platform. So you would hook it up with search, or let's say embedding database, vector database, and then you can use it this way. With the API, you have the access that maybe a small team sets up a small infrastructure for the team to provide better information for everyone in the company. Yeah? So if I show you the code quickly, and again I have the next prompt, so this is actually in a loop. So if I show you the code, you will see, okay, it is .NET, but this is not too scary. And there we go. So the only thing is that take the key, wherever you find it, in a JSON file, in an environment variable, feed it to Google AI, give me a model, and then pass in the prompt until I press escape. And here is actually where I talk remotely to Gemini. So that you see literally in a few lines of code, you have your own AI assistant. And of course, you can give it more information, more instruction, more context, like being the friendly developer or being, a hiking enthusiast. All the possibilities are just down to you about what you want to do. All right, back to the slides. This means, since I'm using Gemini, is actually a situation that I have more time at hand to think about problems, to play around with ideas, and to nurture my creativity, because I'm not blocking my time with anything that is boring. Yeah, like writing tests, like giving a documentation with explanation, etc. Yeah? So this is actually, since then, a huge booster. And the .NET library that I was just showing in this case is something that I wrote as a side project in 4 weeks. In the evening, 1-2 hours, yeah, sometimes a day, that I was sitting just down there writing code, using Gemini to assist me writing the code for .NET. There are SDKs provided by Google, Python, Node.js, Go, Java, which you would also need for Android development, and it's in the official documentation. However, the interesting part is really about focus on the problems, not on the execution. Yeah, if I have the code with brainstorming, with a couple of adjustments, it saves me typing. Yeah, I get more lines of code in shorter time. And unit tests, I can just go ahead and say, hey, give me a boilerplate, go ahead. And I mean, with this example about the wireframes, saving X amount of days, I think it's a game changer. And so, and to wrap it up is also that in this case that it saves you time, it gets you faster to your goal. And in case of Gemini, I can tell you as well, you can put it into a team support. Yeah? You can have it individually, but you can also provide it with team support in Google Cloud Platform. You would then set up a service account, and in the identity and access management, you can then configure different roles, different users, different groups that get access to the same Gemini context. And so meaning that actually, if you say you have 2-3 developers or people that are preparing the whole context for a project or for the enterprise application, all the other developers can benefit from this kind of stuff. Yeah? Meaning that you take the base version, you do some model tuning, you give it some grounding, which means it can actually verify the generated output against Google search. You give it additional PDFs or whatever documentation that you have that is reality augmented, so that you reduce the hallucinations and that it's more fact-oriented. And that's really then, even in a team or in an enterprise, to my opinion, a very good productivity booster. As we saw, it needs internet, it needs access to Google Cloud Platform. What happens if I don't have that? Well, the models are available. There's a tool called Ollama. You can actually then pull the language model on your local machine, depending on the model, between 1.2 gigabyte up to 17, 20 gigabytes. It's just hard drive. And computing power. And the trick is you need to have a powerful GPU on your machine, and then you can easily run it locally. Luckily, my laptop has an NVIDIA, so if I would run it locally, it's still okay, but it's not as fast as computing raw power that Google Cloud is providing. Yeah, but there are also the possibilities. And with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I think we might have 1 or 2 minutes for questions if you like to. Otherwise, you can also easily catch me then outside. The only thing that I would like to ask on your badges, QR code, scan it, please give me some feedback, because there's a chance that you can win a nice bundle. And thank you so much for your time and attending.